Welcome in, welcome in. We are here back with another episode of SODFS. We're talking NFL Week 15 main slate on Draftkings. I am your host, Dan. You can find me on Twitter at Dan Brown NFL. Here with me tonight, I've got a special guest, Travis, from the Fantasy Points Premium Discord. Picked him up off the waivers this week, and that's right, he's getting thrusting into a starting position. Trav, I appreciate you joining me tonight. How are you doing, my man?
Hey, thanks for having me on, Dan. I'm doing great. Just going to try to get a Jarek McKinnon performance for you here this week.
Hey, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for, man. How's life treating you, man? Holiday season is in the air. I know you said you've got some in-laws there under the roof there tonight. So how's it going?
Man, I think you know how that goes when the in-laws are there under the roof. It's it's always a fun time, needless to say. It's always good. It's actually great to have this plan to be able to step away for a second and get to chat some ball with you boys.
Absolutely. What better way to bring in the holidays than, just full on college football bowl season is here. We've got NFL on Saturday, NFL on Sunday. It's quite the time to be alive, man. Speaking of, this time of year, how are your season long leagues going? Did you make the push for the playoffs in your dynasty leagues? What's going on?
Man, it's been a pretty good year season long. So I'm in 2 dynasty leagues. One of them I've been in for about 12 years, a bunch of high school buddies. So 12 championships. I've had 3 of them. One of my other boys has had 3 of them. Another boy's had 2 of them. Both of us are, poised to make the playoffs. We only have 4 teams make the playoffs there. So, looking forward to that. Advanced about 7 or 8 teams in the Millie and best ball and DK. Loving that. Loving the chance to maybe, bring home the big sweat.
Fuck yeah.
Advanced in, I think 3 out of my 5 other season-long leagues. So I'm feeling good. I mean, the ones I didn't advance in, I was about 500 or sitting at 6 and 8. Good season, but injuries really ravaged me. I mean, I feel like that's been the cause of the season. What about you, brother?
Yeah, I actually made the playoffs in 16 of 27 leagues this
Hell
year.
yeah.
So that's hovering right around a 60% threshold, and I can't complain with that. I think 23 or 24 of those are dynasty leagues, so a couple of redrafts thrown in there. But yeah, I had some best ball teams that made the push into the next round, though. But fucking, my teams are littered with injuries, man. It's so tough this year.
Yeah, it's the worst, man. Just trying to keep some healthy bodies standing up, especially running back.
I've got 3 or 4 teams going into this week fighting to stay alive and coming off of the Kyler Murray injury. Now I was able to pick up Colt McCoy in a couple of those leagues, but most of my leagues I do are super flex as well. So quarterbacks are hard to come by in those leagues, and losing Kyler this close to a playoff push, it fucking stings.
You got to check for your boy in Atlanta there, see if he's on the wire, maybe.
And even him in most of these dynasty leagues we do are so deep that he's nowhere near. Colt McCoy or Ripien is probably your best bet of having any hope of a waiver wire at this point.
Yeah, Ripien. How about that Yahoo League eligibility? Got to love that, right?
Yeah, that's nuts.
Got one league in there. We're in the playoffs.
I do want to take a minute to mention that Sons of Dynasty and SODFS are officially part of the Fantasy Points Media Group. Make sure you guys check out all of the great content at Fantasy Points Premium Access has to offer. Use promo code SUNS22 for 10% off your subscription today. You are joining us on this Friday night, and obviously we're talking about the Sunday main slate. And we've got some early games, a total of six early games there at the 1 o'clock hour, and then followed with 4 games there in the afternoon. So late swap is definitely going to be a part of the game plan with a lot of these builds. Just being able to check out that ownership after the 1 o'clock locks and seeing what we need to do to get different there in the afternoon.
Yeah, this looks like a great slate to me. Some people are going to complain about how ugly this slate is, but I think that's a slate where we can make some money.
Yeah, I mean, even in the early games there, we've got a couple of games hovering just below 50 there on the over-under. That's with the Chiefs and Texans there with the over-under sitting at 49.5. Chiefs 14-point favorites in that one. And then we've got the Cowboys and the Jags there with the over-under sitting at 48. That should be another game that I think people are going to want to target. And one that you and I have already been talking about pre-show there is the Eagles at the Bears. over under sitting at 48.5 right now. That's just a game environment that we want to attack, and we're going to gravitate towards in a lot of these builds we're focused on this week.
I love that game environment. I mean, you got to think about it. If the Eagles dominate like they've been dominating, I mean, what is Chicago going to do? All they got is Fields. So, they're going to Fields ain't going to go down, like a punk. I mean, he's been balling out. He's been putting the team on his back. He's been putting, the Cam Newton Superman cape on. So you can expect that again this week. And if he puts it on, we could see 4 or 5 touchdowns out of each team. That's a game environment I'm targeting all day.
And as far as the afternoon games go, there's not a whole lot of excitement, really just 2 games that I think are kind of interesting. That's the Bengals at the Bucks and then the Titans at the Chargers. Both of those hovering around 46 for the over under. But the Cardinals Broncos, I'm expecting to be a slower paced game. 2 backup quarterbacks going to be in play there, and the Patriots and Raiders. Man, the Patriots are beat up right now. I don't know that they're going to have many bodies on offense this week. So, and the Raiders, while we've had some booms and busts out of Jacobs and Adams, Derek Carr just hasn't looked good, and it's hard to trust many people in that offense right now. That's another game I don't think I'm going to want many pieces of.
Yeah, that game, if I'm going anywhere, it's going to be the 2 people you mentioned. I'm either going to go back to the well with Jacobs or Adams. It's just, like you said, I'm a little nervous with that game. Just the Patriots seem to, have their way with quarterbacks that are fringy or kind of crappy. And Derek Carr is the definition of that when you look in the dictionary. But it's kind of hard to get away from Jacobs if he goes. And I can see McDaniels wanting to run it down as, old bosses start.
No, absolutely. A couple of news and injuries here that I'm going to mention before we get into the main slate quarterbacks, and that is quarterback Mike White for the Jets will not clear concussion protocol. So Zach Wilson will start at QB for the Jets this week. Coach Zach Taylor noted Friday that he feels good about Boyd's finger and his chances of playing Sunday against the Buccaneers. T. Higgins is also expected to play, so Joe Burrow will have a full weaponry around him, minus the Red Rocket and the Hayden Hurst this week. Coach Mike Tomlin indicated Friday that Pickett will be listed as doubtful for Sunday's game. Expect another dose of Mitch Trubisky. Texans Dameon Pierce is not going to play this week. Rex Burkhead is the favorite for the touches in this backfield this week, but I don't think I'm very interested in that offense at all. And as we mentioned, Ripien will start this Sunday for the Broncos against the Cardinals because Russell Wilson did not clear concussion protocol in time. So they're missing a slew of guys there in Denver as well. I think Jerry Jeudy might be the only dog in town then at the wide receiver position again for him this week. He exploded this past week with 3 touchdowns. I was lucky enough to have a decent amount of exposure this past week.
That was a great call. What a week to have him after he had been dead pretty much the entire year. Amazing call by you. Yeah, like you said, I don't know if I can go back to the well with him this week. At that game, if I'm doing anything, I'm looking at the defenses with it being low scoring and with having backup quarterbacks. Maybe we can, we'll talk about it when we get later, but maybe we can get some turnovers with them being backup quarterbacks there.
Yeah, we were actually contemplating using Jerry Jeudy for the cover art for this week's episode, due to him balling this past week. But we like to go with a guy that did well this past week, but we also feel is going to do well this week. So we ended up going with Big Mikey Dubs that we will talk about a little bit later on. I am into him this week as well as the rest of that Chargers offense.
Yeah, I love that call too. I hadn't checked his ownership. I'll look at that here in a second. But yeah, when we get to go through that position later. But Mike Williams is going to be, I think, highly owned this week. But I think that's well deservedly so. You saw how that offense changed with him back there. Herbert really targets him, and it really opens up everybody else.
So, Trav, we talked about a couple of the games already and some games that we like. Are there any other game environments that you find yourself, chasing after this week? Maybe 1 or 2 that you want to try to get a heavy dose of exposure to when making these builds?
There's 2 I like. More for GPP plays, though, than I would say cash. I would say not go to these 2 in cash, but I think they have the potential to be somewhat of a shootout and have some hidden gems. Maybe not even in the shootout, but where you have a concentrated offense. So I'm looking at the Steelers and Panthers. I think that game could end up being a dogfight. And when I say dogfight, both defenses aren't great. Panthers are better than the average, but you could still easily get 2-3 touchdowns out of Pittsburgh, 3-4 touchdowns out of Carolina, and all of them going through 3 guys. So GPP play, I'm going to have a decent amount of exposure there, especially with Foreman and his price. Other game I'm looking at in the early slate is I love that Atlanta Saints game. It's such a barbell game. I mean, it's a division game, so it could be a slugfest. It goes, 17-14. That's unlikely. But they've got some explosive pieces on both sides, and the price of the Atlanta pieces, you can really overstack them and get some real expensive guys there. And if Atlanta scores 3-4 touchdowns and is concentrated through London and Patterson, you'd have a GPP winning tournament lineup.
Yeah, no, I love that call. I'm excited to watch that game this week, being an Atlanta Falcon fan, as we were also talking about pre-show. Excited to see the draft pick come in with his first NFL start this week. And I think we're going to see him use his legs a decent amount in this matchup. I'm going to go ahead and pencil him in for 45, 50 yards rushing on the ground. And his price tag and projected ownership, we're going to talk about a little bit more, but I'm going to have some GPP builds with my guy Desmond Ridder this week.
You better believe that, brother, especially since you like that team. But even if you don't, that ownership and his legs, that price, we haven't seen this rate of quarterback play for GPP at that ownership in a while. I'm going to be all over it myself.
Hey, well, we will get down there. Those are the cheaper options at the quarterback position, but let's go ahead and get into those quarterbacks that we want to talk about so much. And, we have to start up towards the top. And typically up at the top is my guy, Jalen Hurts, there for the Philadelphia Eagles versus Chicago this week at 8,200. He is projecting as, I believe, the second highest QB on this slate right now, hovering around 13-14% projected ownership over there at fantasypoints.com. So tell me, Travis, do you like Jalen Hurts this week in this matchup?
I love Jalen Hurts in this matchup. You have the question of going back to him after he had that 30-point game. But when we talk about like the ugliness of this slate and how we like it, there's only been so many people on the slate that can score 30 points. So if you're building multiple rosters, you have to have some Jalen Hurts. He's just unstoppable right now. Passing is on point. Running, they get Goddard back. They've got so many weapons. They can't double up when they've got Goddard back. Cash, Mahomes, you could almost lock him in, but there's a couple other people here. But yeah, I mean, if you go back to Hurts, you can never be faulted. He's a little bit more expensive, but I like that game environment a lot. You get 4 or 5 touchdowns out of him. What about you?
That game, I'm going to be all over this week between Jalen Hurts and Justin Fields. I mentioned my 20 plus dynasty leagues that I have more exposure to those two QBs than any other QBs in the NFL. So I'm fully invested in that game. I think that both of those guys are bona fide studs at the position when it comes to fantasy football, most definitely. So it's a game I'm super excited about. Love Jalen Hurts this week. And he I mentioned he's coming around 13-14%. That's the QB2 projected ownership as of right now. And that's only second to Pat Mahomes, who's coming in at $8,100, $100 cheaper. And he's been on a fucking tear this year. So we're getting to see some of Pat Mahomes, I believe, best football he's played. Yeah, he's had a mismatch of weapons. Obviously, the steady Travis Kelce there in his back pocket at all times. But this guy, it doesn't matter who's around him. He's going to put up numbers, and I think he's going to put up some good numbers again this week. The field seems to think so too, because right now he's one of the most popular quarterbacks on this main slate.
And I can see why. I mean, he has been a monster this year. I guess all it took was him getting his brother to stop doing TikToks to be, consistent the whole season, right? But and the thing with Kansas City is Andy Reid will pour it on. I mean, even from the last game where you think, you might worry about Philly shutting it off if they get up. I don't think that's the case when you got Fields on the other side. But in this case, Mahomes, they play with a chip on their shoulder. They act like they don't hear the news, but they hear the news. They heard the MVP talk for Hurts. They heard, they saw how Ingram did last week, and how Kelce was dominating, how he hasn't really been in the headlines lately. I have a feeling it's going to be a huge Kelce week. Mahomes is going to target his boy. He's going to get him back in the limelight. He's going to jump himself back up in the MVP odds.
Yeah, no, I like that call right there as well. And we've already mentioned him. It's Justin Fields. He's coming in at 7,400, which feels like a great price tag for him. When you mention Jalen Hurts and Pat Mahomes being above 8K there, getting Justin Fields, who we know has slate breaking upside at this point at 7,400, in a game environment that, as we mentioned, we're expecting him to have to keep his foot on the gas. The Eagles always come out hot and heavy. I mean, in the first half more often than not, they're putting up 28 plus, it seems. And if that's the case again this week, I mean, Justin Fields is going to have to be magical like we know he can be at 7,400. I love Justin Fields this week. We kind of mentioned some stacks and builds that we like attacking this game. I love getting Justin Fields locked in at the quarterback position to save me a little bit of cash, but not be afraid to take some of those Philadelphia weapons along with him.
Oh, for sure. I mean, this game environment, you could almost stack 4 or 5 players. I'm looking at builds with Fields, Sanders, Brown, and then bringing it back with Kmet, because if Fields is going to get there and break the slate, he's going to need a pass catcher. But even if you don't want to go with Kmet, and let's say you want to get up to Kelsey and spin there, you can. I mean, all of Fields' pass catchers are cheap. We got Equiminius at 3.7. What else does he have here?
Yeah,
Pettis at 3.2. Yeah, and Pettis is at 3.2. But if Fields is going to get there and this game environment's going to hit, he's going to bring 1 pass catcher with him at least, maybe 2. Kmet's been his boy. The other thing with Fields too is like if the Eagles do happen to get up, like their defense will slack off in the second half, and that plays to Fields' advantages. If you've got people playing man, playing back, he gets in the open field, just takes one move, gone, 60-yard TD. I love that game.
Yeah. You see, Jalen Hurts on the season averaging 27.1 fantasy points per game there on DK. Justin Fields, as of right now, is sitting at 21.9 fantasy points per game. But, we have to think about the beginning of the season and the woes that we saw with him towards the beginning of the season. Well, over the past 6 games, he's averaging 28.9 fantasy points per game and over 100 rushing yards per game on 12.3 carries per game. So those are Jalen Hurts fantasy points
RB1
per game. I mean, those are the numbers, but we're getting to plug him in at 7,400 as compared to Jalen Hurts there at 8,200. So, again, we don't need to gas up Justin Fields anymore, but I'm going to have a lot of exposure, especially if we see anything like the projected ownership that we are seeing right now, which you and I kind of talked pre-show, feels a little bit low right now, but Fantasy Points is projecting him for a mere 5% ownership right now. If that's the case, or if it's anywhere near, I'll be 3 to 4 times the field this week.
Unfortunately, I haven't checked in my other places, but if everybody's going with Darren saying it's going to be low, I have a feeling people are going to start talking him up. He might get, he might pull a Rashad Penny from earlier in the season, projected for 7%, and comes in owned at, 25%, 30. So I think he's going to get steamed, but if he comes in that low, we're printing money this weekend.
Let's go a little bit cheaper this week, but another stud QB that we've been targeting often this year, and that's Joe Burrow there for the Cincinnati Bengals, coming in at 7K. Trav, I know you like him this week.
Oh, I like him. That's if you're not going with one of the top 2 guys, top 3 guys that we just mentioned, you got to go with Joey B. Joey B has been living up to his name. He's been bringing it, walking around with his balls, in a wheelbarrow, swinging around like South Park. He's got his boy back now. I mean, everybody was down last week. He had nobody. He had, me and you out there running routes as the number 2, and he was still putting up numbers with Chase. I mean, Chase is incredible, and he looks like the hip was nothing. So got to go back to him. Got to pair him with Chase. If you don't go back to Burrow, Chase is a one-off. I mean, this game is good. I mean, the Buccaneers defense is fine, but it's Jamar Chase. Like, you can't sit him this week in a week where you don't have a ton of studs up top that are in great matchups. What about you? How you feel about this game?
Yeah, no, I love Joe Burrow, and I think as we're going to talk about in a little bit, just Tom Brady on the other side of the ball. Nobody wants to play him. His price tag, just the disrespect on a $5,500 price tag for one of the goats of the game. But it's because the Bucs have been fucking terrible the last few weeks. Mike Evans has turned into a fucking broken refrigerator. Chris Godwin's really the only thing smoking. We got some Rachaad White fire for a couple of weeks, but Leonard Fournette came in and all of a sudden it's a muddy backfield again. So, but what about you? I know you like Tom Brady this week at 5,500 as well.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to go on this show and say that. I mean, I'm not going to have a ton of him. He's not a single entry build in my opinion, but he is definitely a GPP play, especially since you can overstack this game and the prices of his wideouts. You can get Godwin and Evans and him.
I love Godwin.
Bring it back with Chase. Oh, I love Godwin this week too. Evans has been Nelson Aguilar-ish, I guess we'll say, as far as
shots fired. Shots fired.
But I mean, that game, he's had a couple of touchdowns called back the last 3 weeks. He did have one long one called back on a on an offensive penalty last week. He's good. I mean, he can put up 3, and I like to go to people like that when the field shies away from him. Just like earlier in the season when Fields was down, started to go to him early when he was in that same range, 52, 53, 5,400, and he hit a couple weeks in a row. Brady's starting to play good. The further he gets away from his wife and gets his mind clear, I think he's going to start balling again. I mean, they're going to roll into the playoffs and have a home game. They may not do much after that, but they're going to have a home game. Like, that's crazy.
The problem is like Brady was having some down weeks, and I'm talking like 6 or 7 weeks ago at this point. And it's like, all right, man, he's been shit. The field's not going to play him. I'm going to get some Brady stacks in there, and he keeps letting me down. So
Me too.
I don't want to be early on him anymore. I'm done trying to be early. I need to see it before I want to invest again. Now we're talking Millie Maker. Yeah. If we're talking Millie Maker, give me TB and Mike Evans stacks, because I don't think anybody's going to really want any of either of them this week.
Agreed. As far as that goes with the percentage in the ownership, that's a place to play him. Large field. I think Godwin's playable in single field. Small field, I think that mini stack of Chase and Godwin is really attractive if you're not going to go with either of the quarterbacks, just because that game's going to probably get you about 3 TDs on each side, maybe 4 TDs on the Bengals side. Most of those will go through Chase and Mixon more than likely. And then you got to think, Godwin's been getting close to 10 plus targets since last month. So he's going to continue that because they don't have anybody else. He's basically become Mike Evans volume wise from last year. So I do like that environment. And I really like that mini stack of Chase and Evans. Or Chase and Godwin. I'm sorry. And if you want to get funky, bring back Evans.
No, absolutely. Desmond Ridder there for the Falcons. We've already kind of talked about Falcons and Saints. I know Andy Dalton's been getting a little bit of steam this week as well, but I don't really want any part of it. Yes, I know it's a great matchup against my Falcons, but I just can't do it with Dalton. I might have some one-off pieces there from New Orleans, and as we talked about, potentially a cheapo Falcon stack.
No, I love the cheap Falcon stack. I honestly love Drake London as a one-off. Not sure what your feelings are about that, but based on his price and just, he's a rook. You got the rook quarterback coming in. I mean, with Pitts being out, you got a similar size, similar athletic build player that really hasn't gotten a chance to show out. And, they've been kind of ragging on the quarterback. I think this quarterback's going to come in and he's going to want to, let his other rookie ball out. Then we'll form a bond that will last, and then they can kind of, take him the league for years to come. So I think he's going to target London early, often, and with tons of volume.
I'm trying to look up London's projected ownership real quick, because I know
but his price is incredible. 4,700.
Yeah,
CPAT's 5,900. You can stack that team. And if you think it's going to be somewhat of a shootout, if it's on that other side barbell of the barbell outcome, you can get Kamara's cheap this week. Olave is not expensive. Like, you can get some pieces and really get the concentration.
Yeah, Drake London's coming in and projecting around 6% right now. Olave's coming in
Love
at 14. So Olave is kind of catching.
Think about doing Ridder. Ridder, then you got London, and then you got Olave. You got that stack right there. You go ahead and dilute that 14% ownership, that 1% quarterback, 6% receiver.
Yeah, you're getting Ridder and London at like sub 8% ownership together. So,
well, yeah, you got to probably assume most are stacking since there's only 1% on the quarterback and it's not flipped there, but still, like, that percentage. You throw in CPAT, I guarantee you're probably only competing. There's probably a couple other lineups in that tournament that you're in.
All right, I like Amon-Ra St. Brown this week. I'm not necessarily into the matchup here for Jared Goff this week. He's coming in at 5,700 against these Jets, but I think you're a little bit more interested than I am.
Oh man, maybe my our talk before that. Let me see, a 4% ownership. I am a little more interested in that. I thought he was going to get a little bit steamed after his game last week. He's not a cash play. He's 100% a GPP play, and you got to stack him up. People are going to stay away from him because of the matchup. I'm going to stay away from him, but I'm going to have a lineup or two with him because he's shown he can do it, and you can stack him and Shark cheap. If you want to get funky, you could even do something like Shark and Jameson Williams and Goff, and that leaves you with tons of salary to jam in Devontae and Chase if you want, or jam in Eckler and Chase, and get real expensive in other places. Just based on his ownership, I'm going to have a little bit of him. He's got the chance to put up 30, 35. He's done it this season. He did it last week. Kind of surprised it's not a little bit more. I'm expecting like 7 or 8%.
So before we move into the running back position, let's talk a little bit about some overstacks and which teams are you targeting when it comes to your overstack builds?
Oh man. So I already mentioned 2 of them earlier. I love the Chiefs overstack this week, and that's just Mahomes, Kelsey, and then whichever pieces you want to do that aren't the running backs. So I think the running backs are going to get major steam just based on their price and what they did last week. So if you want to go MVS Kelsey, that's great. If you want to go Juju Kelsey, that's great. I think the Chiefs are going to come out and shove it down their throat and try to put up 4 or 5 touchdowns and prove that Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league, and that people, need to not forget about him. The young gun's good, but Patrick's still around. So I love that stack. Talking to the young gun, I love the Eagle stack. I played it in a couple tournaments last week with no bring back. I'm not. See, it's a little bit tougher this week because you've got Goddard coming back. So I think I would swap out Smith for Goddard because we talked about pre-show where Smith was kind of taking the Goddard bowl with the shorts and slants. But it just price-wise, I think I would do the Goddard, Brown, Sanders, Hurts stack if I'm thinking that game's going to be a shootout. And in this case, with it being the Bears on the other side, I would potentially bring it back with one of the cheap pieces like Equiminius, or Pettis, and then you've got some money to spend elsewhere. If that game environment goes off, you maybe get the Chase Goblin mini on that team too. So
yeah, I mentioned I really like the Field Sanders mini stack for that game. If I'm not getting any Jalen Hurts love in my build, so I'm definitely into a few of those. Let's talk about
what about you though? Any onslaught stacks you like though, like 4 from a team? I mean, that's been more of a trend this year in some of the bigger GPP tournaments.
Yeah, it's just tough, man. I really just bringing too many pieces along. I obviously in some of these large fields, I don't mind trying something along those lines, but usually, it's three pieces unless I might make an exception if it's a true punt tight end, 2600 piece like Pruitt this week for my Atlanta Falcons, I think coming in at 2600 this week. So obviously if you want to get super crazy with the onslaught there for the Falcons, and have plenty of bring back options there for the Saints. I mean, that's a divisional game that could get funky. As you mentioned, though, that game could do absolutely flop as well. I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh yeah,
I think it's going to keep some people off of it, especially having that much exposure to that game. A lot of people might be more interested in a one-off.
True. Yep, and like I said, I love London as a one-off if I'm just doing that from that game.
All right, let's breeze through some of these running backs here. Starting up at the top, I'm going to mention Derrick Henry. He's got a great matchup against the Chargers this week, coming in at 8K there on DK and one of the highest projected running backs on this slate. And it's due to the Chargers defense, as they've been the second softest matchup for opposing running backs on the ground this season and have allowed the most yards after contact per attempt and the highest yards per carry to the running back position. So we know the Chargers year in and year out are one of the ultimate run funnel defenses, and the Titans, Burks is out. They don't really have much of a passing game. Dontrell Hilliard is also out this week. The guy who can sometimes be a thorn in the back of Derrick Henry is not going to be in the equation this week. I think they've brought the rookie back up, and he's potentially going to get a few touches. But ultimately, this is just setting up as a feed Derrick Henry game. So I love the matchup. Price tag's up there. And you're not going to get too different by playing him, but can't quite ignore him in this matchup either.
No, I think he should be owned. But if you're using him with that ownership, like you said, I think that's where we talked about some of our funky builds earlier, where you can get some lower percentage owned pieces as your leverage, and put him in there. And if he puts up one of his monster games, which is definitely on the table against the Chargers, Did you happen to hear what Scott had talked about to JM with him earlier with Derrick Henry? I kind of liked his angle.
I didn't catch it.
Yeah, he was. So they were talking about it, and JM wanted to stay away from him because he didn't think he had the massive upside just being in this game environment. But so basically, what Scott said, it was like, well, if you're expecting a low-scoring game environment, then wouldn't that be a Derrick Henry week? Because they're going to, the Titans are going to pound the rock. So just from that kind of thinking, I like Derrick Henry a lot this week too. That ownership is high, but you've got to have some of the king when he's in a matchup like this.
Yeah, but we can get a little bit cheaper than that. Coming in at 7,200, we've got Joe Mixon there against the Tampa Bay Bucks, and he's hovering sub 10% ownership right now. The people love Joe Burrow in the passing game. Yes, Joe Mixon had his blow up game a few weeks back with his 5 touchdown performance or whatever it was. But he had kind of a letdown this past week, and so I don't think many people are interested in playing him. But it's a spot he could get right here against these Bucks.
Yeah, and I think with the old saying to be greedy when people are fearful, I think that's that's the definition of this here is people going away from Mixon because of a down game and his first game back from injury when they kind of eased him in, and Joey B's been playing like he has. I think Mixon is a great play this week. I think you can stack him with him and Chase. I think you can stack it Burrow, Mixon, Chase, bring it back with Godwin, and you're setting yourself up for a chance to win if that game hits.
Yeah, I mean, that right there. I mean, and none of those guys are Godwin's maybe the highest projected ownership out of all the guys that you mentioned there. So it's a great way to get different by attacking this game this week.
Yep. And what about when you mentioned Henry? No love for Chig earlier. No Chig season.
Yeah, I just don't know.
I don't know either.
He looked great this past week, so we'll see. We'll see if he comes back again. Until they price him up, I'll probably have a little exposure.
Not too.
Let's talk James Conner coming in at 6,900 against the Denver Broncos. The game I kind of mentioned feels like it could be a slow-paced game. I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being 14-3 or something along those lines at the end of the game. But James Conner, I am interested in, and it's simply because Kyler Murray is out. Colt McCoy is in the picture. Connor's been an absolute workhorse over the last 4 weeks, playing on 91% of the team's snaps. That's the most by any running back over the last 4 weeks. And he's handled 90.7% of the backfield's expected fantasy points. So been an absolute stud. And then you factor in that he's been better for fantasy when the Cardinals have had Colt McCoy under center there. So over the last 2 seasons, Conner averages 22.8 DK fantasy points per game across the 6 games that Colt McCoy has attempted at least 10 passes. So we are looking at, once again, Colt McCoy being the starter, and he loves to dump it off to James Conner. And I think even in a low scoring affair, I feel pretty good about James Conner this week.
You summed it up there. I don't have much more to add to that. I think he's a good play this week. I think he's definitely a cash game play. GPP, yeah, I struggle playing him in GPPs. I think you can. I think it's a smart play just because it's going to be funneled through him. It's just a matter of how many touchdowns you're going to get. I do like pairing him with the Cardinals defense going against Darnold and the Panthers. I also like the other side of that. With Foreman and the Panthers bring it back. I know we'll get to him in a second, but both running backs in this game are attractive just because they're going to get the volume. Like both these teams don't want their quarterbacks to throw. They're scared of their quarterbacks. Understandably so. I mean, when you're seeing Ghost, you don't want to throw it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Hey, Trav, I'm going to go get a quick refill, but if you would, just continue talking about Alvin Kamara and Miles Sanders, 2 guys that we've already kind of hit on a little bit thus far, but go ahead and hammer them home and why we think they're both great plays this week, and I'll be right back with you.
Yep, not a problem. Got you, brother. So first one we wanted to get into was Alvin Kamara. Talked about him a little bit earlier in that matchup versus Atlanta. So he is 6,800 this week. That is the cheapest he has been, I believe, in about 2 years when I was looking back through the DK app. Now, granted, he's been playing like shit. So, of course, they're going to lower his total cost. But looking at his ownership here, 19%. I see the field sees that. I think I saw a comment earlier in the chat about 6 TD game incoming. I could see that incoming as well. I mean, this is a division game that can go either way on the barbell. It could just be a grinded out game where they actually give Kamara the touches through the ground and through the air. He gets 110, gets 1 TD. They win, 10-7. I mean, that's on the table for this game. This game could also just be a shootout. I mean, you've got Ritter who can make things happen now potentially coming in, and if the game goes into a shootout mode, the Saints are going to have to score through Kamara and through Olave. So this is a great play, especially at this price. I think he's a great cash play. So then we want to look at Miles Sanders. That's talked about that game. That game environment is incredible. I want to get as many pieces as I can for that game environment. He's coming in a little bit more expensive than he was last week. I think he was 63 last week. He's coming in at 65 this week, showing about 12% ownership. I think that's a little bit low for the way he's been balling. He really has been a big piece of this offense, and this offense has been a freaking wagon. So if you can get a piece of the offense that's a wagon, and in a game that's going to be potentially the highest game of the slate, you want as many pieces as you can of that. I mean, this game could potentially be the Miami game from week 2 with basically how these two offenses can really get after it. I mean, all it takes is for the Eagles to have a bad defensive game or somebody to make a mistake and to let Fields get going, and this game environment can really, really explode. I love Sanders this week.
Yeah, no, I'm huge into Sanders this week. Darren was hammering him this past week there in the Fantasy Points Premium Discord.
I had tons of them, like you did.
Yeah, and I hopped on it, and he showed off to the tune of 17 carries, 144 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I'm going back to him this week. The matchups there, and the Eagles have been very savvy with their weekly offensive game plan, essentially attacking their opponent's weakness each and every week. And this week, it's the Chicago Bears run defense. So I can't say enough good things about Sanders.
Yep, I see him and Hurts running all over the Bears this week. There's no reason for them to pass as much. I still like the passing options because they're going to put up points. But yeah, they could put up 250 on the ground easy.
Yeah, shout out to my guy Rusty there in the chat who called me out there on my PJ pants. Normally nobody would know, but I had to get up and get a refill. And God damn it, if Rusty didn't see my flannel PJ pants. But hey, Rusty, cheers to you, my guy. Appreciate you tuning in with us tonight. Hey, Trav, let's talk about some cheap options here at the running back position. We talked about all the pay up guys, 6,500 plus. I mean, that's paying up as far as I'm concerned at the running back position. Let's talk about some cheaper options.
I think there's a lot of cheap options this week. I mean, it's going to depend on some of the injuries that we talked about, but I mean, Bam Knight's either the same price he was last week or $200 cheaper at 5,300. I mean, he's gotten at least 14 touches in each game the last 3 weeks. I think he got 17 last week. Got the tutty. I mean, he is a good volume play. I think he's a great cash play. I think you can pair him with the Jets. If you want to kind of fade the Lions offense in that game and you want to kind of go contrarian in that respect, you can even have potentially a bring back with one of the receivers and still play the defense. Some of the other cheap options that look good this week, you've got the Burkhead that you mentioned off the top. I mean, he's going to be starting. He's attractive because of his option, $4,600. And in that game environment that I talked about where I want a lot of the Chiefs, I think the Chiefs are going to be putting up points. I think Burkhead's going to get a lot of opportunity in, dump offs. They're not going to really have a ton else that's going to be able to get working, I feel like, with Davis Mills kind of just being looking like Chad Pennington out there with his arm. A couple other cheap options too here that I'm not huge on this week, but I think the field's going to be huge on. I think the field goes back to McKinnon quite a bit at 5,200 after his huge week last week, and I think they also go back to his pairmate in the backfield, Pacheco as well. He's a little bit more expensive, but I kind of like the Chiefs passing game and being contrarian from that aspect, even though it looks like Mahomes can be highly owned. Latavius at 5,100, getting the volume. I think if you're going to play that game, you pair him with the defense. You potentially can play Mac if you want to save $700 more. He got that touchdown for the first time in I think 3 years last week. Yeah. Eno's coming in at 4,400. If you don't like Burkhead, I think there's the potential to play two pay down running backs this week, and then really spend up at receiver if that's the way you want to go. There's some viable options down here. What about you?
No, that's a way. That's a way that I typically like to go. I love to find some cheap options there at the running back position.
I love Foreman too.
Just
I forgot to mention that. Sorry. Like
Yeah,
love
just
Foreman.
so I can lock in the wide receivers that I want to pay up for. I'm team wide receiver each and every week. More often than not, occasionally I like to mix in a stud running back, but I got to get my guys there at the wide receiver position. And speaking of those guys, let's move on into the wide receiver position. But before we do, I want to take a minute to mention Elite Picks. It is the newest daily fantasy lineup optimizer. Take as much control as you would like by locking in or customizing players and letting the DFS lineup optimizer fill in the rest. Elite Picks Optimizer uses top projections and provides cutting-edge multi-lineup features to direct your lineup guidance to what you need to win on DK and or FanDuel lineups each and every week. Never tried an optimizer before? No problem. You can try this one absolutely free. Just click the link in the description below and you can get a 1 week free trial there at Elite Picks. That is for NFL and NBA. So check out Elite Picks today. Trav, let's talk about some wide receivers this week. When looking at the wide receivers in particular, I mean, anything you notice from a value perspective? Lots of guys up top that you want to pay up for this week.
Yeah, I'm thinking so. I mean, there are a couple of people down low that I do like when I'm pairing it. As I mentioned earlier, that one off with Drake London at 4,700. I love that play this week. We talked about the Jets, but with no Mike White, not really feeling that. I mean, it's possible you go there with Flacco, but it's not going to be Flacco. It's going to be the MILF Hunter. So, the only way you would get that to go is if he got hurt, which isn't likely. But up top, I love paying up for Chase. I think he's the best wide receiver player this week. Whether you want to pair him with Burrow or not, I think I may have 100% jammed in Chase to be honest with you. Even with taking the boy back, I think he's on another level this year. I like Adams. His price tag's expensive, but I do like him this week. I mean, it's just you run that issue of playing the freaking Patriots and having Bill, basically triple teaming him essentially. Other than that, I do like Brown at 8K. I think you like ARSB a little bit more than I do. I think he's always a good play, but why don't you talk about why you like him this week?
Yeah, I mean he's coming in sub 20% this week, and that feels low coming off of the mini slate that we had where he was 45% owned or whatever it was, and kind of had a letdown. But I think I'm going to go back to him this week, and it's kind of the matchup that while I don't love it for Goff as a whole, I think RSB has one of the best matchups as far as it goes for the offense there for the Lions, as the Jets rank second toughest schedule adjusted matchup for opposing outside wide receivers, but it is much closer to a neutral for opposing slot wide receivers. So St. Brown has the edge as far as the matchup goes in this matchup against the Jets, and I'm expecting him to have to once again kind of carry the load there for the Lions this week.
Yeah, and with Vegas having this game being projected as almost a heads-up game, those are the type of games where they could shoot out and it field sent away because of the Jets' defense. It'd be a good position to buy in on.
Yeah, but probably one of my favorite wide receivers this week is Mike Williams there for the Chargers against those Tennessee Titans. I love Derrick Henry with a Mike Williams bring back for a mini stack this week. But Mike Williams coming in at 6,300 almost kind of feels like a misprice in my opinion. It's kind of a matchup play for me this week. The Titans have allowed 7.4 schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to opposing outside wide receivers this season, leads the NFL by far. And given the heavy passing volume that we have seen from Justin Herbert in these Chargers the last 3 weeks, Herbert has averaged 49 passing attempts per game over the past 3 weeks. And that's the volume that I'm looking for when I'm targeting wide receivers. We saw the downfield contested catchability once again on display with Mike Williams this past week. This is a great matchup for Herbert, for Keenan Allen, but I really love the pricing here at 6,300 for Mike Williams.
He's a smash for the Chargers as far as like if you're going to pick one. His pricing that's like you said, it feels like a misprice. I think his ownership probably goes up quite a bit. That you saw how much different that offense looked last week. I mean, Herbert has had his
Night and
attempts to
day.
be up. Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, he's been throwing a lot this year, but he really hasn't been scoring a lot. And then you see Mike Williams come back, and he looks like he looked like Justin Herbert again. Not that he didn't before, but when you got a cast of characters banged up and third, fourth receiver, um, he does a lot for you. So are you going to think about pairing him with Eckler, or would you pair him with another like Palmer, or what about the tight end?
Yeah, no, I don't mind that. Maybe even, yeah, as you mentioned, the tight end there for the Titans could potentially stack him with even a Derrick Henry. I don't mind that, just due to how condensed that Titans passing offense is right now. There's just not many mouths to feed as far as the passing department goes. So even tagging him along with a guy like Derrick Henry feels fine, and he's still down there at what, 3K there for his pricing this week. So. I don't mind bringing him along. That's pretty much the only Titans passing option that I want this week, though.
You don't want to do the Scott Barrett Galaxy Brain Nick Westbrook of Keenan?
I can't. I did. I did. I
Love you,
did
Scott.
him. No, I did him 2 weeks ago, and
Me
it
too.
was when Burks caught the touchdown and went out the rest of the game, and I was set up at that point. I was like, yes, my punt play is going to come through. He's the only man in town. He didn't do jack shit for me the rest of the game, and that I mean, Burks went out early in the first, and of course he had the long touchdown the next week, and I was a little sour about that, but still didn't even have that great of a fantasy day. I can't go back to him this week. I'm still sour. I'm still sour.
Same today. Yep. Only Titans I'm touching is going to be Henry and Chig.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love that. Again, I don't mind taking Chig along even in my Henry builds. And I think he's great as a one off there for the Titans as well.
He's the only downfield option they have passing. So if this game speeds up, which Herbert can, kick it in the ass to speed it up with the weapons he's got, I mean, they're going to have to do something besides Henry. Henry can easily, have 150 and 2 touchdowns, and Chig still get, 50, 60 yards to the air and, a touchdown or 5, 6 receptions, and you easily paid off that 3.1K salary.
Yeah, I'll mention another cheap option there for that New Orleans Atlanta game in Rashid Shaheed this week. He is the clear wide receiver 3 in this offense, and he's earned an 11% target share on a 67% route share since week 11. As far as you're talking pure punt play wide receivers, he's probably going to be one of the guys I'm targeting there at sub 3,500 this week.
I like him. I like, if you're doing that game, I like the London Zacchaeus stack. Zacchaeus at 3.4. I mean, if you're going to just pair that up, I mean, you pair up Zacchaeus, London, Shaheed, you've got money to go get yourself Chase, Henry, and probably Eckler. If you were to do something like that. Down low, the other ones that I like down low, this isn't below 3,500. I do like, if you're playing fields in a bigger field, putting a little bit of Equiminius in there, 3.7. I do like the overstack of Mahomes putting MVS in there at 3.8. But under 4K, those are really the guys I'm looking at. MVS, Equiminius, Zacchaeus, Shaheed, and then maybe Josh Reynolds. I don't really like Josh Reynolds since Jameson Williams came back. So those are about the 3-4 I'm looking at for a punt. Anybody else you're thinking about?
I mean, those are pretty much it. Let's talk some tight ends real quick. I want to have time so you and I can put a lineup together real quick before we get out of here. So let's talk about some tight ends. We already kind of mentioned Cole Kmet coming in at 4K. Love bringing him along with Justin Fields. Kmet has led the team in target share in back-to-back weeks with a 25 and a 28% target share, and posted 2 of his highest route shares on the season with 89% and 82%. Cole Kmet seems like really one of the main go-to options when I'm making a Justin Fields stack. Again, if I'm taking Justin Fields and Cole Kmet, maybe bringing Sanders along, or maybe bring it back with an AJB or a Goddard, instead of Kmet. But I'm all over that game this week. It's not getting past me. Kmet coming in at projecting around 7%. I'll fucks with that.
All day. I mean, if you're putting in Fields, it's not the same because you've got to see a build, but almost like if you're going to play Kelsey, you just go ahead and lock him at home because they're both going to have that big game. I mean, if Fields can have a good game, especially in cash without bringing Kmet, he can get 15, 20. But if he's going to have this game where, this is the GPP winning lineup, he's going to bring a pass catcher along, like we said. And Kmet is his boy. Kmet's got the hands. We saw that grab earlier in the season. I love playing Clement here. As far as tight ends go, I mean, there's only like 4 or 5 that I really like this week. I mainly with tight end, I'm almost stacking my quarterback if it's a cheap option, as far as a cheap option and a bring back on a game. But this week, I kind of really like Kelsey. I may end up being overweight on him. I mean, I'm going to have some Chig, I'm going to have some Goddard, I'm going to have some Komet, but I'm going to have a lot of that big boy up top. I mean, he's been having an incredible season. A couple down weeks the last 3 or 4 weeks, but he's still been getting targeted. Like I said, I think Patrick wants to get his boy back engaged for the playoffs, get him back on track to break that Gronk touchdown record. And what better spot to do it than Houston?
How about my guy Evan Ingram this week, coming in at 3,800, coming off of a slate-breaking performance this past week with 39.2 DK fantasy points on a 22.7 expected fantasy points workload. So he's seen a ton of volume these last few weeks, and coming off the big game, I thought he'd be projected a little bit higher at that 3,800 price tag, but he's coming in around 5% this week. Any interest for you?
If I like light money on fire, 3.8K is not bad. You can still win with him. The career game and then paying for him after the career game, I can't do it, man.
Chasing points.
Look at his DK game log before that. The 5 games before that, he scored less points than he did in that game last week. Like,
it really came
paying for that. I mean, and then what? Christian Kirk's going to continue to just suck. I mean, I think they try to make an effort to get him back involved, because if the Jaguars want to make a playoff push, I mean, they've got some weapons, but they've really had Kirk and ETN be kind of not involved the last couple of weeks. And if they do want to make that push, they got to get some of these studs back involved. So I think they make an effort to kind of involve them again. Evan Ingram can go a couple of weeks without complaining. He did that in New York very well.
Any DSTs that you are interested or going out of your way to target this week? I don't have any that I'm like super hard up for. So what about you? Any DSTs you're targeting?
I haven't seen the ownership percentages on that. Let me look and see if we put it on the show notes. Nope, that's fine. For DSTs, I kind of like that game we talked about, the low scoring game, that Panthers game. Steelers game, not that game. I'm sorry, the Cardinals Broncos game. I really kind of like that game. I like both defenses. I like pairing that with any of the running backs if you're trying to save with the Broncos. Latavius is gross, but 5.1 not bad. You want to go even grosser, max 4.4. I don't think either of those teams score more than 17 points. And you've got 2 backup quarterbacks. There's going to be some turnovers. I mean, they may just run the ball a ton, but there's still going to be fumbles. There's going to be backup quarterback trying to make a quick throw. I mean, we've seen the Colt McCoy story many times. It's fine, but he makes turnovers. So I like that game for the defense.
Adam in the chat wants to know if it's a smart start week for Jelani Woods this week. I don't have a ton of interest in any of the Colts really, outside of maybe Jonathan Taylor. How about you?
JT is probably the only person that I really like this week.
All right. Well, if it came down to Jelani Woods or Elijah Moore, I know which way I'm leaning, but let me kick it over to you before I drop the hammer.
I'm going Elijah Moore. I mean, we've got his cousin in the Discord, man, all day. I mean, just that mojo. But I mean, you look at ceiling. Who's got the higher ceiling? It's definitely Elijah Moore.
Yeah, I slick kind of like obviously Mike White has been great for Elijah Moore these last few weeks. If people aren't going to play Garrett Wilson or potentially even Elijah Moore due to, Zach Wilson once again being the starter, if they're going to come in, under owned this week, I might have a sneaky Jets GPP build this week.
I don't hate it, but you talked about going back to the well with Brady. I feel like I've gone back to that Jets well before many times.
I get it. So I get it. I wasn't going to ask you. I wasn't going to ask you to come with me.
Oh, no, I hear you. Same with the Brady. I'm on an island there for this week.
All right, Trav, now that we've kind of gone through some of the main pieces, what do you say we try to put a build together real quick before we get out of here? And what we're going to do is you and I are just going to go back and forth. We've talked over all the positions. You being the guest, I'm going to let you go first, and you're going to pick our first piece of our puzzle. Any of the positions are open, whether you want to start with a stud running back. Okay, Jamar Chase, it is coming in at the
Sorry for cutting you off there. Yeah, no, we locking in Chase all day.
All right, let me get it. Let me get it up here. We'll go ahead and get Chase there locked in. 8,300 there. So now it kind of puts the pressure on me as far as, do I want to bring Joe Burrow along? Should I do a mini stack? There's really nothing running back wise that I want to chase. I'm contemplating between throwing Burrow up there with him or potentially throwing my guy Godwin on the other side, and we have a little mini stack there and we can get out. I think that's what I'm going to do, or at least I'm going to go ahead and push us that direction. I'm going to throw Godwin on the other side. So now we've got Chase and Godwin. You can, sir, take it and potentially do a full game stack from here, or we can head another direction. We mentioned a couple of other games that we're interested in. Maybe we go over to one of those and get a few pieces and then keep it moving.
Yeah, let me throw an alley-oop for you here. Is this, we're doing GPP, right? Not cash?
Yes. Let's go large field GPP.
You know who I'm picking. Let's get that old QB from your boys, the Dirty Bird Falcons. Let's get Ritter in there.
Okay. Oh shit. Here we go. All right. Well, then that kind of makes it. I'm gonna go here, as I mentioned.
Unless you don't
earlier.
want to go there, I was gonna say.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I
love that. I love that. And to get crazy, I'm gonna save us some money here and get Pruitt locked in at 2,600. Believe it or not, the last couple of games he's looked okay. I mean, not getting a ton of opportunities in this offense, but he's really been the only dog in town there at the tight end position. We're talking large field GPP here. We've got Ritter coming in at sub 3%, and we've got Pruitt coming in at sub 1% more than likely. Jamar Chase and Godwin, both semi-popular plays this week, but I think just where we are at the QB position and now the tight end position, we're sitting pretty and can pretty much go anywhere we want with the rest of this bill.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You like you want to throw in the double sack here or no? What do you feel about that? Is that too much? Too much
No.
Falcons?
No, I'm fine with that, especially like I said, Pruitt at 2,600. We're just looking for that one catch for 6 yards and a touchdown really out of him, and with London being we might have a pretty condensed target share here for Ritter. I don't know how many times he's going to be asked to drop back and pass, but I don't mind that. But it makes me want to plug in a bring back option there for the Saints. So I can go ahead and throw London in, and then let's just think about who it is that we want to bring from the Saints side.
I was going to say, if you want to hold it, you just want to do a mini and bring back Olave, or if you want to see where we go next. I just didn't know if you wanted to double it or what you were thinking.
I think I do like Olave, and maybe we get out of that game at this point. So let's go to another game that we've talked about, maybe Philly-Chicago. How do you feel about Miles Sanders and going ahead and locking him in?
Lock him in.
All right, that's giving us 47. All right, let's talk DSTs there for a minute. And
all right, so GPP, we're at 14, 2 left. Okay. Let's see. What is Tony Pollard at this week? A little expensive, I think. Yeah, 7.1. I don't want to pay that much. Sorry, Darren. I love him, but I don't want to pay that much.
I think we need to get a cheap running back option in this week.
Do you want Foreman or Bam Knight? I think we go there and we pair him with the defense, either or.
Let's go Foreman and pair him with the Carolina DST.
Let's make sure the Carolina. What's the price of that D?
Let me check. Where are they at?
Carolina coming in at 3,300, 5.9% projected. It looks like Jets are 3,200. I like that.
Yeah, so about the same price DST was. I think I like still Foreman and Panthers over.
Or Connor and Cardinals, but that's a little more expensive. But I kind of like Foreman and Panthers too.
Yeah, unless we're going to be looking at a sheer punt if we go Cardinals, and so right now we got kind of an ugly spot here. Some running,
what's our price? 5,500 flex.
5,500. That's looking at some cheaper running back options. Really, Hollywood Brown questionable still. Pickens,
Drake London.
Yeah, how much is London?
47.
Yeah, there it is, right there.
I mean, it's an overstack of that game. If you want to.
Well, look, let's get rid of Pruitt because Pruitt could be a little cute. I mean, because then we have guys like, Johnson's a guy that that I'm definitely interested in this week, and that's in the same game. So we could plug him in instead of Pruitt if he's in this week. I mean, with the matchup and the production that we were getting out of him prior to him, missing a game or two,
Yep, I see it.
I
The chat said it.
really like Johnson. So I think we got a little something there. Let's break it down here for the
Oh
listeners. We've
man,
got Ritter at QB, Sanders and Foreman there at the running back position, Jamar Chase and Godwin there with the correlation. Chris Olave, part of the bring back, Jawan Johnson there on the bring back option as well for our Falcons stack there with Ritter and London in the flex position. Of course, we brought the Panthers DST along for Foreman, so you've got your correlation. Let's go ahead and lock that thing in, and we are out. I like that build right there, man. Look at that. That's pretty. Large field GPP. That one might bring us a fucking million this week.
The chat was talking about Chig and Conklin. I like either of those options as well. With that tight end, you can. I mean, really, any of those. You can go with any of those three. Jawan's got 2 touchdown upside. Chig's got a touchdown upside. Conklin's got touchdown upside. I like all three of those for big GPP plays. But it sounds like we got that millionaire when they're locked in.
Yeah, man, I'm loving that. I do want to take a minute to urge everybody to go sign up at fantasypoints.com today. With Fantasy Points, you have access to the newest and best website in the industry for your season-long daily fantasy and NFL betting needs. Access to articles, live streams, podcasts, cheat sheets, and more, all available there at your fingertips. It's the only subscription you will need all season long. Sign up for Fantasy Points premium content using promo code SUNS22. You can get 10% off at fantasypoints.com. Go check it out, because if you ride with Fantasy Points, you will score more in 2022 and beyond. Also want to thank our sponsors, Canva. Big ups to Canva. They are who we create all of our layovers for each and every week. My man, Brother Matt, here with us tonight behind the scenes.
Big shout out, Brother Matt.
Putting in the work on Canva each and every week, giving us these crispy overlays. We can't say enough good things about Canva. We love being partnered up with them. So make sure you check out Canva, and you can click our link to get a discount there if you get signed up for Canva Premium. If you are looking for any SODFS or Sons of Dynasty gear, look no further than ViridianGlobal.com. All of our gear is held over there. You can get fine hats such as the one I'm wearing and much, much more there at ViridianGlobal.com. Trav, man, I can't thank you enough for joining me tonight. You were a fucking gem, and I hope that maybe you will come back and join me again some other time. Maybe in these NFL playoffs, we'll be doing some shows.
Yeah, you're the gem, brother. Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure. Shout out to the Fantasy Points crew, director of Dang Scat, Scott Barrett. We love you, brother. Love you, Johnny P. Everybody in the Discord. Let's keep grinding and get these W's this weekend.
Yeah, man, that Discord is just popping each and every week, man. I can't get enough of that. I said it last weekend, and I'll say it again. The Discord is probably one of my favorite parts of the whole Fantasy Points operation. The articles are great. All the content, the stats are great. But just being able to be in that Discord with all the great minds there at Fantasy Points and everybody else, guys like you and myself, just being in there and bouncing plays off of each other, updating with news regularly and just figuring out pivots together, man. It's fun. I love that Discord.
Positive community. It's great. And I said it earlier, but again, major shout out to Brother Matt. He did awesome with the graphics and behind the scene. Incredible job producing.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Brother Matt, you brought your A game this week once again. Make sure you guys are following Sons of Dynasty there on Twitter at Dynasty Sons. Make sure you are subscribed to this SOD YouTube account here on YouTube. Click the bell so that you never miss a show with us. Appreciate each and every one of you tuning in, whether it be via YouTube or podcast at a later time. Let's enjoy the weekend. Holiday season is here, and get ready for some football all weekend long. We got Saturday and Sunday, baby.
Hell yeah. It's a great weekend.
All right,
major
guys.
Shout out to you again. Great show.
I appreciate you, Trav, man. He is Trav. I am Dan. Much love to everybody out there this evening.
Don Taylor, lots of love. Y'all have a great one. Have a good weekend, y'all.
Yee.
Yeah.